walks out the door, the husband says, I'm out. Deuces. And she goes, wait, what? And he goes, yeah, I don't feel this anymore. He goes, I know you're not happy. And she goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, come on, be honest. You're not happy. And she goes, well, I'm not unhappy. And he goes, this is not the kind of life I want to live. This is not the way it should be. And he already had his suitcases packed. Walks around the corner, grabs his suitcases, and he's like, yeah, I'm leaving. Bye. And she's like, what? Wait, wait, wait. And so she's sitting there, and before he leaves, she's like, hey, I booked us a second honeymoon. We're going to Africa, to a safari. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm not going. And so he leaves. He walks out the door, and she's looking at herself and going, now what? And so she decides to go on this adventure by herself to find herself. So she goes out into Africa, half a world away, and she is in her feelings, upset about the situation, upset about the result of what happened. And this man, Rob Lowe, comes and sits at the bar, and he starts to poke at her. Oh, so you're here on safari? And she's like, yes. And then he goes, that's a pretty big meal for two. And then he sees the card. He goes, oh, Mr. and Mrs. And she goes, yeah, that's not anymore. And he goes, oh, so he's in the room sick? And she goes, no. And he goes, he had to work? No. So he's prying all of these things out of her. And finally she goes, okay, if you must know, my son went off to college. I booked us a romantic second honeymoon. And he decides that he doesn't want to be with me anymore. So here I am on a romantic trip for two, at a table for two, by myself. Happy? And he's like, oh. And then he looks at the food and he's like, that's a lot of food for one person. And she's like, here, just, and she walks away. So the next day she's going to this, a lodge, a safari lodge. And he's telling her, don't let the name lodge fool you. This is a very luxurious place that you're going to. And so she's upset because she's like, really? You? But she criticizes the name on the plane because he's about to get her on a plane and take her off into the wilderness. Eyes to see, ears to hear. And so the name on the plane is Kirk. And she goes, Kirk? Really? Aren't you supposed to name like planes after girls, after women? And he goes, yes, but no. And he goes, Captain Kirk. And I just heard, beam me up, Scotty. And I was like, God. So she gets in the plane. They're flying over the safari. And they're the preserve, the animal, the wildlife preserve. And he's telling her about the different animals that are within that preserve. And he sees something that bothers him. And he goes, we're going in for a landing. And she's like, what? And so he lands the plane. And he gets out of the plane and tells her, don't get out. Stay in the plane. Of course, she doesn't listen. And so he walks out, and he's looking for what he saw above. And he comes to a stop, or he's stopped, and she's coming after him. And he sees her, and he's like, don't make any noise. Don't make any subtle movements. And in front of him is an elephant calf whose mother has been butchered for her tusks. And the woman used to be a veterinarian, okay? When she first met her husband, started having children, she was a veterinarian by her career. God took her all the way across the world to land in a safari, and an elephant has lost its mother. And so she felt the pain of this young calf because she lost her family. And she left everything, everyone behind. Her son was off in college doing his own thing. Her now soon-to-be ex-husband is now living his life. You know, her girlfriends are enjoying being in New York City because that's where she's from. And, you know, she's just not, her mindset's not there and in that place anymore. And so she ends up taking this elephant and helping put him into the preserves vehicle to take him to be cared for. And while she's there, she's given an opportunity, a choice. She could go on to the lodge and continue feeling like she's been feeling, or she could take this new path and follow this calf and see where that leads her. And I was just like, okay. And as the man gets in, as she gets into the truck in the back with these men that she doesn't know from this preserve, and they're driving off, they focus on the man, Rob Lowe, and he goes, I didn't see that coming. And it reminded me of my husband and how there were certain times in our friendship where something would happen and he would be like, I didn't expect that. Looking at me, I didn't expect that. So the things that we did together throughout the time that we worked together, I was never disrespectful. I never was like, oh, touchy and all that stuff. God never, thank goodness, led me to do that. But he did have me cross his path a lot. And the song that keeps not popping in my head, but the song that keeps coming up is The Ghost of You by Justin Bieber. And I realized it in the moment. I'm like, God, why are you making me feel like you're having me do all these things because of the ghost of me? And he goes, you'll see. Because I knew I was going to leave. I didn't know how I was going to leave. And then soon, as we got closer to the end, God started to show me, you're going to get terminated, you're going to get terminated. I'm like, and I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, let it be your will, not mine. And so that song keeps popping up. Now, there's a song by Selena Gomez, The Heart Wants What It Wants. When You're Ready, Come and Get It. And Love Song. Those are 3 songs that I sent him throughout our friendship. The last 3 songs, though, I sent to him after I confessed my love for him. Because God said, and I don't know why, but when God reveals things in the natural, then you're like, had I not done that, that wouldn't happen. Had I not done that, that wouldn't happen. Had I not done that, I wouldn't have been. You know, you start to see the puzzle fitting together. And remember, he's being told, sorry guys, I have this hair that's loose and I can't find it. It's on my, anyway. So remember, he's being told by these individuals that he's just another guy to me. He's just another a coworker. Okay. Now, I did say when I first started that I would not be dating a coworker because that happened in my previous life. My ex-husband and I were coworkers. But God said, but that was then. I was like, okay, I'm trusting you. I'm cleaving to you. I love you. I respect you. I honor you. You're going to do this for my good. Okay. And so this friendship that started with this man, he initiated the friendship. I had no, like, I had my walls. And God just put him right through. And when I turned around, I was like, how do I have feelings for this man? How is this how I feel for him? And so, because he's getting all these negative things about me and about the way I am, God is saying, you're going to have to open up because he can't tell. That's how masked I had my feelings. That I can go through a day and someone not even know that I'm angry, someone not even know that I'm upset or that they've hurt me. My ex-husband, half the time he didn't even know that I was upset because I just went through my day like nothing happened. I was good at pretending. I was good at covering, veiling my true emotions. And so God started to say, you come on, you can do this. And I was like, no. And so I had to open up. I had to tell him how I felt. And all of this was to let him see that there was a difference, that he was not like the other men or the other boys. He was singled out by God. And so you guys can say, that's not the way God would do it. I'm not God. He's God. You guys have a problem with the way he's leading me? Go talk to him. Okay? So, then he brought me to Colossians. Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. And it says, and whatsoever you do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not unto men. So everything I did it because it was like I was doing it for God. Like I was doing it to God, not to him, not to a man. Okay? I was putting all of my heart into it, doing I was behaving as a child of God in loving this man, showing him that he was singled out by God, not by me. And I spoke to him about God a lot in text. And then I'd say, God willing, to him. And I know that throughout this time that we've known each other, even though he's no longer attached or in a relationship with this woman, like living together, being boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, that sort of thing. They're not in that kind of relationship. But it has morphed into something else, a convenience of the body, of the flesh. You know, you use me, I use you. Kind of friends with benefits type deal. It's like, oh, well, you're not really cheating because, I used to be your girlfriend, so we can have this playtime together, She was hoping to rekindle the love, the affection from his heart by giving her body. But we all know what happens when you work from the flesh. It just, it doesn't bode well because God is not in it. And it already ended once. Now it's going to end a second time. And it's going to leave them both feeling disgruntled. It's going to make them feel filthy, unclean, because this is fornication. This is adultery. Okay? Because he knows he doesn't belong with her. But he's using her body to satisfy the urges that he has within him. And this is where God is bringing everything full circle for me. He's saying, you know this is happening. And he's going to have to tell you that he's done this. Which is why he's in his feelings. He's afraid that I'm going to be like, seriously? You broke up with her back then. You knew that you were meant for me. You told me that this is not the kind of man you are. Yet you fell into this sin. That's the kind of thing that God doesn't want us to be. You know, we can't hold them accountable. We can't judge them for their sin. I've committed sin. I've been with men who weren't my husband. He's my husband, remember? I was outside of his will for my life. So how can I judge another man or another human being, another person, for the exact same thing that I did? So walking in wisdom, and I say this because God just highlighted, walk in wisdom. Walking in wisdom is understanding that we don't have the right to shun someone because of their sin, because of their behavior. That's not our place. Our place is to show them love, understanding, charity. Because if we show the level of love that we have for ourselves to our neighbors, to our fellow humans, we will never treat them as sinners. Because we all know what it feels like to be treated as a sinner. The church, the current state of the church is exactly what it's doing. Creating a level of acceptance that you're a sinner. It's okay. You're going to continue to sin. It's okay. But God is the ultimate saying, no, it's not okay. I don't think it's okay. And God wants me to touch on something, okay? Something that the church committed a sin in, okay? Who is the gate? Who is the path? Who is the way? Our Lord Jesus. Yet, when you go to church, when you step into a church, any church, it don't matter. It does not matter the Christian, Catholic, Baptist, the denomination. Does not matter. Every single one of them says, in order to go to God, you have to go through us. No. Jesus is the way. We have to come to Jesus. We have to accept the burdens of carrying our cross. The church is not the way. The church is not the path. So they are sinning in that ideology. They are sinning in that speech because they are making themselves the doorway. And they're not. The doorway is God. The doorway is Jesus. Him laying down his life on that cross, that's our path. That's where our soul needs to go to. That said, this is how God brought this to me, because I'm like, God, I've never been interested, not even when I was a little girl, in the idea of getting married in a church. Getting married the way that society has deemed correct to get married. and this is going to ruffle some feathers, I know, but it's okay. When God presented Adam and Eve together, there was no ceremony. There was no white dress to signify anything. In fact, they were naked, completely blank, naked. You could see everything. The church created a ceremony. The church created a defining moment. And not just one church, all the different denominations. Every culture across the world has this same behavior. That in order for you to come into union with the man, you have to show the world your commitment to this individual. When in reality, the only one who needs to know your commitment to each other is God. The world and what they think, what they say, matters not. And I know this is going to go against a lot of different prophets who say, wait for marriage, yes, wait for God to present you in marriage. That doesn't mean he wants you to go and spend all of this money, do all of these things to show the world that this individual is your husband. That's a fleshy thing. That's a ego-centric thing. Give me a second. I have to go get my charger. Okay. So, the reason God is helping me understand, like, where he stops. Like, and he understood. It started as, if we look back to Moses, and when he goes and asks the father for his daughter's hand in marriage, there wasn't a ceremony. It was just a presentation. Here you go. This is my daughter. Goes into the tent, makes her his wife. And then there's a celebration of the family. So that became a process. Just like Christmas became a process. The Passover became a process for the world, for Lucifer to plant his seeds of pride, of desire, all the sins that are committed, valuing money over God. And whenever I think back, when Rebecca was presented to Isaac, they didn't go and have a ceremony and, the priest blessed their marriage. No, God blessed their marriage. God said, this is your wife. The servant prayed that this woman would be virtuous enough, or would be the virtue wife of his master's son, Isaac, and she would be willing to travel. She didn't take her family. She didn't go, hey, I invite you over to a party. We're having a party. Come on. They stayed where they were at. They stayed in their hometown, living their lives. They sent her. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Go be with your husband. And he took her into his tent, into his mother's tent, and made her his wife in that moment. So for us to think that we have to have this lavish wedding, think about where it's coming from. Where is that idea coming from? You want to show the world what God is doing in your life? Where are those feelings based in? Remember, the heart is corruptible, because if you attach feelings to the emotions, Lucifer can come in and pull those emotions and be like, ooh, I know how to get you. I know how to get you to start walking in the wrong direction. And so whatever you do it with your whole heart. Don't go, oh, I'm doing it because I'm following God. No. Posture is everything. If you're half-assing it, God's going to know, because he can see our hearts. He understands if you're doing it with motivation other than for him. He understands that. Maybe it's because you desire to have a lavish wedding and you want to make yourself feel better for having that lavish wedding. It's like, okay, then say so. But make it something that you and God come into agreement with. You know, maybe God has a different idea of what he wants for you. I know what he wants for me, because I want a simple life. I want not a simple life in terms of basic, but I don't need the lavishness, you know, because my husband has a wish, has a dream. And I'm like, you know what, Father, if that's his wish, if that's his dream, why not? We both have, we both love similar music. And that was one of the things that we started to realize about each other. So when we spoke for like 4 hours in the middle of the night, we were talking about music. And he made a comment about being an Elvis fan. And I was like, me too. And so we started to talk about the different songs, and, you know, and I was like, I was so sad when I found out that I was born the year that he died, or the year before he died. And, you know, I was devastated. I was like, no. And so we had that in common. And then we started talking about other music and other musicians and things that God had been bringing to me throughout my life. And now here's a man who has similar interests as me. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know this was something I wanted. I didn't even know that this is something that I needed in my life. Because it makes my soul happy. And so I was like, that's fine. If that's what he wants, I'm willing to go and do it that way. I don't need, you know, this isn't just about me. This is also about what he wants and what he desires for his life, for, you know, the dreams that he's had, that God promised him. I'm going to fulfill that. Okay? And so now, so I'm going back to the songs that God gave me. You know, the Avril Lavigne song, Head Above Water. And he had me look at the lyrical version of the song versus just watching the video. I know the video and I've seen the video, but he wanted me to see the words. And the words, the lyrics that stuck out to me were, I'll meet you at the altar, down on my knees. And I was like, wow. Like, thank you, Father, you know? Because that's that would be the beginning for us. Is we're going to get down on each other. We're going to get down on bended knees together. And present ourselves together as one to God. And when God blesses our wedding, blesses our union, then we can go and we can celebrate and we can bring God with us. However we want to celebrate. But our union has to be first blessed by God. Not with an entourage of people looking onto us. And see, a lot of you were thinking, oh, she's talking about sleeping with him. No, this is about you and your husband as a husband and your wife, kneeling before God and creating that covenant with God first. Okay? Once that covenant has been completed with the three of you, God being in the middle, then celebrate. Invite your family. Showcase God's love in your marriage. But remember, when you present yourself in public, there will be haters. There will be people who will say, nah, this isn't going to stay together. I'm going to make sure of it. And they're going to talk. And they're going to do evil. And they're going to speak death into your relationship. Which is why God says, keep it a secret. Don't let anybody else in. Don't let anybody know what's going on with the two of you. Because when we meet at the altar at God's feet, there will be no turning back. Okay? God isn't going to do it over again. God isn't going to go back on his word and go, yeah, no, this didn't, just kidding. You know? This is it. You got to go all in with love, respect, honor, and cleave to that man, cleave to that woman with everything you have. Just like you cleaved with everything you had to God. Because he's your foundation. And now because the two of you are in agreement with God, guess what? You're both going to cleave to God. You're both going to love God. You're both going to cherish God. You're both going to look at each other with loving eyes for God. Is it going to be easy? No, because the world is still going to come against you. But your foundation will be in God. And then the next song was I'm With You.